Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it is the 11th of February, 2021. And frankly, I was expecting 2021 to be a little more dynamic than it is now. But good to be here, nevertheless. Better than the alternative, as they say. Hope everybody's doing well. And had to bolt last week. I started feeling kind of sick, got a little stomach virus. So I'm going to pretty much cut right to the chase on the questions tonight. And we have questions from last week's. Um, Thank you, Dave Big Booty, for that little show of magnanimity there. Yeah, so we didn't get a chance to get to the members' questions last week, and we've had some since then too. But it doesn't look like there's too many, so looks like we will be able to have ourselves a little fun in Facebook as well. So I don't see anything really much different out there in the world. I did put up a notice. Some of you may have seen. I was going to do an episode of Moving Back to America on situation in China, an article that several people recommended to me called The 30 Tyrants, and I started blocking that out, and I thought, this is actually too good for that. Just, so I am basically been working most of the day on a firewall for that. I hope to shoot that tomorrow afternoon, get it up by tomorrow night. That's my hope. So there won't be a Moving Back to America show tomorrow morning either, but nevertheless, hopefully it'll be worth it, because this article is really, it's just one of those fantastic pieces of actual journalism that shows you the whole picture about how we got into the situation with China, how deep it goes, and why it goes there. And I plan to use a term that I haven't heard before. It may be a term that's in common usage, but nevertheless, I haven't heard it before. And I was trying to think about the attitude of these American elites who have gotten rich working with China and don't seem to have any problem with that. And I don't think you can really call them anti-American, although that is certainly the outcome. I don't think that's their intent. There are anti-American forces out there. Like the entire progressive movement is anti-American. I was trying to think, what do I want to call these people that basically just go along with China and allow all of this stuff? And the term I liked the most was post-American. There are. I'm thinking I'm going to call this our post-American elite, or China and our post-American elite, something like that. Because that's really, I think, a good way of describing what all of these characters are up to. They are doing business with them because they're making buckets of money. They don't seem to think that it's a threat. And as I said, it's not so much that they're anti-American as they're just post-American. There's an entire world full of elitists everywhere who believe that it's the global economy, and anybody who's not down for the global economy is obviously a relic of the Stone Age and undoubtedly racist and all the rest of it. And this is how they assuage their consciences. But basically, they do business with China because they make a bucket of money, and the degree of I don't even want to say infiltration, because that is, it's a paranoid sounding term. Saturation might be a better word. And we're gonna be losing a lot of ground in the next 4 years unless something fundamentally changes. It also deals a fair bit, this article, and so the firewall also deals quite a bit with the mortal threat that Donald Trump posed to China, and some of the things that China may or may not have done about it. But I think certainly it all fits together. Somebody mentioned I blame the CIA. Mobile Moto, our friend, mentioned I blame the CIA. This is a great example of the kind of things that are in this article. Just as a small example, I'm really glad you brought that up. I don't know how many of you knew this, but apparently, according to this article, the CIA's records, the computer files that the CIA keeps, which you would imagine would be fairly extensive, are conveniently hosted on Amazon servers. And Jeff Bezos has a number of deals going in China. And the pandemic made him the richest man in the world. Somebody said it added $80 billion to his net worth because of all the home deliveries that had to happen. And you can do all of this stuff, and you can get look like maybe you're paranoid about one thing or two things. When you get all these things in a row, then you start finding a rational explanation that's not just paranoia. And most importantly, because this goes down to how I judge conspiracy theories, it's not even does this theory hold water, but is there another simpler theory? And I can't seem to find one. So when you hear that the CIA information is hosted on Amazon servers, I just immediately want to ask myself first, question out of the gate is that because we can't afford them? Is that what it basically means? We can't afford our own servers? How is it possible that the CIA's records are on anything other than CIA servers that are reinforced concrete bunkers with no connection to the outside world whatsoever, other than it's just incredible to me how something like that's just a prime example. CIA is using Amazon servers. What could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Amazon had a lower bid. Well, you know what? And obviously, Mobile's being, Woody Fool is being sarcastic about this. But am I the only person who finds this disturbing, to say the least? When the Secretary of State's former Secretary of State's entire email structure and all of her records are wide open for anybody, and I mean anybody, like high school hackers, to find out everything that the United States government is doing, then I don't know what to say about it. It's so incredible, it just defies belief. But nevertheless, there you go. And a key player in this is Madame Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein is, one of the people who first thought about this whole business of, hey, we can do business with China. One of the things the article points out really well is that nobody ever said, hey, we should be doing business with the Soviets during the Cold War. No one ever said, we can probably get discount if we let the Soviets manufacture our propellers for our submarines with our new super secret design to keep them quiet. We could get a better price by having the Soviets manufacture those propellers than the guys here in Connecticut want to charge us. That's really what it comes down to, That's really it. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll have the Soviets manufacture our submarines' propellers because we can get it done more cheaply that way. That didn't happen during the Cold War because people had the bizarre idea that if you have the Soviets building stuff for you, they've got a pretty good chance of figuring out what it is you're building, and no one treats China that way, and there you go. It's just, well, we'll see. Anyway. Let's see what we have in our question stream. I've got a whole thing in our members forum. I'm just going to go through one by one and see what we got. So, let's see. Henry Lumley says, hey, Bill, can we start using the title Zampullet for AOC in a group instead of the squad, as they do not deserve a cool name? They deserve an honest name. Those communist harpy witches are fulfilling the role of political officers of the old Soviet Union anyways. Yeah, the squad is kind of, cooler than they deserve. Henry, I think it's tough to move a needle that is that heavily reinforced. I think maybe we could add the death squad or the firing squad, or I think maybe the circular firing squad would be a good name for them. Zampullet is way beyond most people's um, detection range. Samus dots, and there's a powerful web blog in the early days called Samus Data. These handheld pamphlets that Russian citizens would pass back and forth, um, and and AOC is. I just I don't I don't know. I don't believe that the American people want this. This is what I, in my heart of hearts, believe. If and I keep coming back to the pop culture, but the pop culture is the pulse, right? If you're trying to determine how sick the patient is, you have to do things like measure the pulse and measure the temperature. That doesn't necessarily tell you what is killing the patient, but it gives you some basic ideas. And so when I try to take the temperature of the country, and I look at things like how do the voters of tomorrow deal with progressive values, and when it invades their entertainment, they not only don't want it, they become violently angry and turn very conservative. I've been surprised to see, well, not surprised, pleased, but four YouTubers that I like to listen to on the pop culture have become openly I would call them openly conservative. One of them is Critical Drinker, who did a thing today on was it Carrera, and getting fired from The Mandalorian. He's basically openly conservative now. Nerdrotic, who does a lot of pop culture stuff, was forced out of California with his wife. They shut down her nail salon or beauty salon or something. He's out, and he's constantly talking about what horrors there are. Doomcock is consistently bashing social justice themes and so on in his own unique fashion. I like the fact that he's got himself a set now, and it's like I think he's got 3 condition lights. One of them is like conquering the world. One of them is on air, and I don't know what the other ones are. But he's great. And then the final one is Awaken with JP, who just did these kind of goofy sort of liberal things, but he's like openly conservative, and all of these people have tremendous followings, much bigger than my following, and so these guys wouldn't be going there if their audience wasn't taking them there, and JWTD Kuda says Red Letter Media makes fun of woke movies all the time. So, yeah, those are the guys who did those awesome Star Wars reviews and all the Mr. Plinkett stuff. So everybody out there who's got their finger on the pulse knows that people hate this stuff. Henry, the stuff that AOC is promoting, they hate it, and if it turned out, you can imagine a world where it was different. You can imagine a world where people were saying, this new Star Trek, the Star Trek Discovery, is much better than the old Star Trek, much better. And the ratings are through the ceiling. And now we have first we had a white lesbian Batwoman. Now we've got a black Batwoman. She might be a black lesbian Batwoman. That's awesome. People love it. They are just going crazy for it. See, ratings through the ceiling. That's not what's happening. So that is my source of comfort. That and the Second Amendment. Those two things are what allow me to go to sleep at night, because they are telling me that woke philosophy and politics has given America a temperature and a fever, and furthermore, I don't think the fact that young people like having their temperature taken in that particular location. So I feel pretty good about that. And people, Dave Big Booty says he's not going to order Disney Minus now. I completely agree. I think they're going to pay a price for that. I don't think Jon Favreau is going to be very happy about this. Favreau seems to we're talking about Mandalorian and Gina Carrera being canned because she said, let's not dehumanize conservatives the way that the Nazis dehumanized the Jews, to which Disney said, how dare you post a pro-Nazi tweet? It's just like, they're not even trying to cover it up anymore, which is actually good, you know? It's good. It's good that they're not trying to cover it up anymore. If this stuff were being swallowed by the American people, we would have an entirely different attitude. I would, and the strategy would be different too. If it turned out that people were loving this stuff, it'd be an entirely different planet, but they don't. I got her name wrong, didn't I? Whatever her name is, somebody just pointed that out to me. Anyway, you get the idea. So here's so you got Jon Favreau that's coming in here trying to save Star Wars with The Mandalorian. He's trying to save Star Wars. And you've got a conservative who's basically fired for a tweet saying, let's not demonize everybody. Who is the name? I just got it wrong. I don't know who the hell. You know who I'm talking about, damn it. He's trying to bring this back. He's trying to bring Star Wars back from the wokeapocalypse of what they've done to it, and now he has to deal with this. He's also got the whole thing with the guy who plays the Mandalorian is a complete left-wing lunatic who's putting out all these ridiculously divisive tweets, and you know, he can't be happy about this, but nevertheless, Carano. Anyway, I just don't know what to say about it other than to say Disney is slitting its own throat, and I can't believe. I can certainly believe that that somebody like Jon Favreau disagrees with her politics. I don't know that he does, but I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard that that Vince Vaughn is a conservative, pretty solid conservative. In fact, Vince Vaughn is the guy who I got one of my favorite lines from, which is, look, it's not up to me to argue your side of the argument. But anyway, he's trying to save Star Wars and depoliticize it. And it looks like he's going to be given the whole thing. And what he's trying to do is get it back into much more conservative values, heroism and masculinity and self-reliance and all these other things, driving fast and all that stuff. So this can't have helped him very much. So moving on, from David Boyner, an eminent member. Congratulations to you, David. I will be there for your award ceremony. I would like to see more about the colonies. When are they going to air your work on famous Americans on esoteric radio theater? Well, thank you, first of all. I've been very pleased about the response to that. I've been rendering planets that I've got. There's an artist who I found who does. I've seen a number of alien planet models, 3D assets. Oh my God, have I got something to say about that? I just realized. A number of them, and some of them are good and some of them are not so good. And then I found one guy who is in a league of his own. He is I can't even describe how good his planets are, and I'm doing 4K renderings of them, and they're like 8-hour frames for one frame, and that's on a fast machine too. But these planets that he's doing are so real. They're so unbelievably real that I've told him, I commissioned him to do 2 specific planets that I need. But he's still buffing up the ones that he's already got. And I'm rendering these things in 4K, and I'm telling him these things are so tremendous that they're actually generating a story. These planet models are so good that they are giving me story ideas. One of them that I like a lot is not original. It comes from Traveller 2300, which is a game designer's workshop game. It's a follow-up to the Traveller game that I played so much of when I was wasting my youth. And I love the idea. He's got one kind of a small planet or a large moon, and it's got a gigantic chasm in it, a lot like Mariner Valley on Mars, but deeper and a little more severe. And I really like the idea of having a body of water, and maybe the body of water only exists in this chasm that goes pretty much all the way around the planet, or nearly. Anyway, Traveler 2300 had an area of a planet called Aurora, French for Aurora, and they talked about the tidal forces on that planet being so intense that once every orbit, as the planet rotated, it was tidally locked to a gas giant. So as it rotates around, it's one orbit of the planet equals 1 day, and the tidal forces, the gravity forces, were so great that on this world, the water would go down this canyon, and it would go down the canyon at such high speeds that the water would go supersonic, and that the sound of this thing could be heard from hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Absolutely, I'm embellishing a little bit here for what I want to do, but basically, I love the idea that you've got tidal forces that are so strong that you've got this supersonic, basically this supersonic plug of water that's moving down through this gigantic canyon, and it's making such noise that your primary environmental concern is noise protection, because the noise will kill you. It's that loud. I just think that kind of stuff is really, really cool, and that idea kind of came back to me and got embellished based on that. So that was great. And I said, oh my God, you got to see something. Let me take a moment to find this. This is worth doing and downloading because it's only a minute long. I think it broke yesterday, this news. So give me a second here while I do my little tap dance and so on. I showed quite a while ago, since we're talking about the colonies, I showed the demo for Unreal Engine 5, which will be coming out later this year. But this was completely unexpected, and this is my number one problem right now, and it's unbelievable. So let me just download this. Yeah. Now this is it's a minute long demo, but I rendered this on my machine last night, and honest to God, it looks exactly like this. So give me a second, because I'm going to download it here real fast. And slap it in there. This is something that Unreal Engine has put out. This is not Unreal 5. Unreal 5 is, I can't even look at Unreal 4 anymore, which is amazingly good, but when I compare it to Unreal 5, it's even more amazing. But those geniuses over at Epic Games released this yesterday, and I'm just going to play it for you. It's 1 minute long. I'm just going to drag it in there and show it to you. Because this is the number one problem. The number one problem for me, for everything, is humans, is the people. Can you make convincing humans? If it turns out that that your humans don't look real, then we probably could cross the uncanny valley, that sense of weirdness. I think we can have the technology to cross that now. But what I would really look like, what I'm really, the end goal, of course, is to have computer generated characters that you cannot tell are not. You can't tell they're computer generated. This link's not working for some reason. Let me find somebody else who's got it. It's worth the delay. It's just wicked cool. Let's see if these guys do it. So, like I said, what I'm about to show you after we get through all this dead air is something that is on YouTube, but I rendered it on my machine in Unreal 4 last night, and it looks exactly like this. So let's see if I can make this baby work. Oh my gosh! Hope everybody else is doing well, because I'm excited about this stuff. It's worth the wait, believe me. I just couldn't get it downloaded before. Let's try it again. Download, you swine. Do it. Here it comes. Won't take long. It's just a small file. Bada bing. Okay, so this is something that was released yesterday, and it made me exceedingly happy, to say the least. It's a right now there's a demo available for Unreal 4 with two characters. The full release is going to come later this year. I don't know when, but take a look at this real fast. This is the latest thing that Unreal is promoting, and this is for a plugin that they're calling Metahumans. Here you go.
I am a metahuman, the next generation of digital human powered by Unreal Engine. Metahumans are high-fidelity digital characters created by you, the user, on our new content creation platform, Metahuman Creator. I am fully rigged, ready for animation and motion capture, allowing you to work in context. With everything running live in Unreal Engine, my motion works seamlessly
on other characters. I have 8 levels of detail and have been tested on a wide range of hardware platforms, from feature film to mobile. If you're interested in learning about my animation rig or high-fidelity deformations, built on Control Rig, the new strand-based hair system via the Groom component, or how everything is tied together and animated in Sequencer, then have a look under the hood in this project. This is just a glimpse of things to come.
So there's a longer example of that, but I'm not going to hit you with that. Obviously, I already had enough dead air. But with that said, that's pretty bloody amazing. I see that, and I just want to go through. It gives me kind of a desire to do a Joker take. Just kind of ta-da. That's fantastic. If you didn't know that especially the black woman, if you didn't know that that was a CG person, you wouldn't know it was a CG person. But the thing about it is, they're very, very easy to make and customize, and this has been the big problem for, and much better than that. So, for example, I've been using photo scanned human heads, and in order to get those things to do the facial expressions, you've got to send them out, and it costs about $1,000 per model to have all of these morph targets done. And I haven't done it yet because I wanted to do the 25 morph target thing and so on. Anyway, and it does all these deformations, and then you have to have it rigged, and then you have to have it converted, and all this other stuff. This lives inside of Unreal, and the characters come fully rigged. Now, that may not mean much to anybody else, but rigging these characters, making the bones so that when their arms move and the fingers move, everything deforms correctly, the facial deformations, all of that is an incredibly difficult and time-consuming and expensive and difficult thing to do. And now here they are, ta-da! And the longer demo shows how easy it is to change the faces and so on. Now there are also I've seen a website that generates it just generates AI faces, and there's thousands and thousands of them, and you pick one, and then it puts up a whole bunch of others that are kind of like that, and you can select another one and so on. And none of them are real people. They're all artificial intelligence. They all look like photographs. I could show you all of them, and you would not know that none of those people really existed. So you could really, what you could really do is you could browse through images of AI created human faces, take the ones you like, and then model these characters in Metahuman to those specifications, and off you go. And I am just over the moon happy about that. And there is a way to get there's a way to get a sign up for early access, and I'm not going to attempt. I'm going to write them and see if I can get early access for nearly all of these things, because we're doing interesting work, and I think if I sent them a demo and said, hey, this is basically what one guy is doing on his own, I think we could probably get the early access stuff. But in any event, Unreal 5 releases in 2021, and so does Metahumans, and two of them together it's over. I was giving some serious thought to whether or not I still wanted to do this live action. But if you have live action actors, let's say, in a computer generated background, you got to match all this stuff. You got to come up with live action costumes. You got to come up with live action helmets. You got to come up with live action actors. You got to do all this stuff. Now, with this Metahumans thing, I mean, for motion capture, I'm using an iPhone 10. The iPhone 10, 11, and 12 have that. It analyzes your face in 3 dimensions so that it can do the facial recognition, so you don't have to go to all the trouble of using your thumbprint or entering an access code. And that is more than enough to track facial motion. So you're in business. You're in business. Off you go. It's all rigged. This was a game changer, and I was very, very happy to see that yesterday, David. So thanks for the question about the thing and the thing, and I continue to try and do that in my spare time. So there you go. Moving on, Henry Lumley again. Well, looks like another question about the colonies. If you want to see more about the colonies, you want to go back and find the various sci-fi nights. So sorry, it's an answer to that. Sorry. So we go to the other question. Esoteric Radio Theater, for those of you that have been didn't get your programs on the way in, had been established by Daily Wire as a non-political brand, and Esoteric Radio Theater paid me to do the Apollo 11 4-part series and also the audio-only 13-part Cold War series. They were done for Esoteric Radio Theater. And they were both on YouTube. And then Daily Wire kind of caught up with their long-term goals, which is to become a conservative entertainment streaming company. And my understanding, I didn't hear this officially, but my understanding is that they realized that Esoteric Radio Theater would mean that they'd be competing with themselves in terms of brands. So they ditched Esoteric Radio Theater. They took the Apollo and Cold War off of YouTube and put those behind their Daily Wire paywall. And I am still waiting for the release date on America's Forgotten Heroes. I don't know exactly what's happening. Certainly, it's time for me to basically send another email. David, I don't know when exactly they're going to air, but we did shoot the America's Forgotten Heroes 7 episodes, shot on video. They looked absolutely great, and as soon as I know about that, I will let you know. So let's see. From Henry again. Bill, can we get a concept art gallery in the member forum with some of the artwork you're working from and maybe some of the animation clips made into GIFs? Excellent idea. Also, are you interested in member input in any of the writing process? Absolutely am, and I'll get to that in a second. I have a short story idea for introducing a couple of early characters, just an outline at this point, but I wanted to know if you're interested in member input. I'm definitely interested in member input, Henry. One thing that I'm playing with is, yeah. Oh, my dear sweet summer children in the comment section. We'll circle back to you on that one. Anyway, where was I? The idea of putting up test animations and concept artwork and stuff and having a forum page for that is great, and I'm very, very happy to hear that, because I was really concerned that huge numbers of members would basically be saying, oh, stop wasting your time. However, in terms of the writing, what I'm interested in doing, and I don't know how to do this yet, but I think it's a good idea. I would like to open source the lore, the background story. And the reason I say that is because there is so much detail that can be put into a fictional universe if you let the fans do it. And for a little over a year now, I've been just completely fascinated by and almost obsessed with an intellectual property that I had nothing but disdain for so long, for 20 years, And that's Warhammer 40K. I hated the look of it. And I think the reason that the characters and the figures look so strange in Warhammer 40k is because they're originally designed as miniatures, about that big. And so you can't get a whole lot of detail into something that small, so everything's kind of, blocky and big. But then I read the backstory of it. I mentioned it a few times on the show, of just how horrific, and in the grim dark future of, hang on, in the something like in the grim dark future there is only war, and basically it's the ultimate dystopia. But the depth of detail in the 40k, the Warhammer 40k universe is unbelievable. It's rapidly approaching the depth in Star Wars and Star Trek and so on. Yes, I'm not doing a grimdark future, but nevertheless, I'm talking about just how deep all that stuff is. And that's because there have been something like 40 or 50 books, novels and stuff. Imperial Guard all the way. Yeah. These Astartes take all the credit, and the Guard does all the dying, but the Emperor protects. See what I mean? That's in the grim darkness of the future, there's only war. Or maybe the grim darkness of the far future, there's only war. So you've got all of this potential, all this brain power available, and that you've got 30 or 40 real solar systems, real stars anyway, with fictional solar systems around them, and actual exoplanets as we find them, and the amount of mental work necessary is overwhelming. For example, I would like to have 25 or 30, at least, and more if I could, different corporations, mega corporations. I've developed 4 or 5 of them. Don't tell him, because I haven't told him I've stolen his name, but the good guys, spaceship manufacturers, Regan Dynamics, from my friend Brent Regan, and then Sparta is the name of a Sparta Aerospace is the name of a company that manufactures these kind of super rugged, not very pretty nuts and bolts transports and things like that. But I've got like tons and tons and tons of logos and graphics and what I need is what I'd like is to have 1 or 2 people basically just take one particular mega corporation and just run with it. Just run with it. Give us the backstory, give us the all of it, because once that's there, then you can start working these things in. Who was it that did a great job with these mega corporations? Might have been Traveler, the original Traveler. Yeah, that sounds right. Ling Standard Products sounds right. Shipping company. But yeah, like Odenbach says, building better worlds. Like Wayland Yutani, great example, right? The Wayland Yutani is the corporate structure in all of the Alien movies, and it's incredibly believable. Thank you for the Gesundheits. Incredibly believable. So when I talk about open sourcing it, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Now there are 2 problems with this. One of them is legal, and the other one is emotional. The legal problem is how do I can open up development of this universe, but I cannot remove myself as the filter or the gatekeeper. In other words, the problem would be finding a way, and this would literally come down to a legal agreement, some kind of contract or something. If somebody develops something that is really good, then I'd be willing to, not only willing, I'd be delighted to include it into the game, make it like official canon. But you've got to also have some protection against somebody doing something that's not very good. You got to be able to say no. And so that is a legal problem in terms of a release of the idea. You don't want to have somebody basically sketching out an entire moon and naming all the features and all the rest of it. The stuff that adds so much texture, to the universe, and something that one guy, no matter how talented he may be, no one person can do this. So I'd love to open that up to pretty much everybody. but there has to be a gatekeeper, and that gatekeeper is also a filter. It's gotta be, the stuff has to fit, and if it doesn't fit, then uh, I can't include it. And so there's the legal issue, and there's also the emotional issue. You don't want to be the guy to tell somebody who's been working on something for 6 months, or for either for free or for next to free, and basically selling, and then they come up with this ta-da, and it's like, I'm sorry, I just can't use that. But both of those problems are problems that can be solved by making everything clear at the outset. I think as long as you don't build up anybody's false hopes, and you make that crystal clear. Hey, we're gonna, we will decide whether we're going to use it or not. And in any event, I think that's great. Uh, so now Edward Smith makes a good point. He says, to my mind, a lot of the visual entertainment is meh. There's nothing like good actors reading good dialogue and good sound effects people to draw that picture that makes CGI look like crayon drawings. I completely agree in a lot of that, Edward. One of the things that I learned from being a theater major as opposed to a film major was that if you can't put your actors at a table with scripts and have them do a read and have an audience in there and have the audience find that movie read compelling with just the actors, just reading the lines, if it doesn't pass that test, then you probably shouldn't make the movie. It makes you wonder how many of these $400 million action movies, if you took all of that out and you just had the actors sitting around a table reading the lines, acting the lines, but no costumes, no special effects, nothing, how many of them would be holding your attention? And if it doesn't hold your attention on a table read, then it's not worth shooting. That's just all there is to it. But try telling that to Hollywood. So anyway, that's something I'm looking forward to doing. Now, as far as contributing story ideas, I suspect what will probably happen, looking at how these things normally go, I will probably write, if we have let's say we have a 10 episode season, I'll probably write all 10 episodes of the first season. And then once the characters have been established and once the relationships are there, then it'd be my pleasure to have professional writers write episodes, and same metric as on the other stuff. It has to be good, and it has to fit. But the good news is, a good actor, I'm speaking as a director now and as a writer, I'm speaking as a writer-director. You give an actor a script, and you've got your character that you've written as a writer, and you've got to hire the actor as a director, and you know what you want him to do. One of the greatest experiences in this whole entertainment business, I think probably my favorite experience in this whole entertainment business, is watching people contribute to something and amaze you with things that you'd never considered. For example, you can give a script to an actor, and a bad actor will not deliver what you had in mind as a writer or as a director. But a good actor will surprise you, not only with nuances in the character, but they might suggest lines. They might say, what if I do this? Is a little weird. Okay, well, where are you going with this? Well, what if the guy had a real particular hang up about this kind of thing? It kind of could put a spin on all this. You know what? That's a great idea. Run with that. Yeah, and Charles Dawson says, I'm an actor, so I dislike seeing all the good roles taken by virtual people. Yes, true, but let's just remember that the thing about motion capture is it may not be your face, but it is your performance. That's actually a pretty pithy way of putting it, if I do say so myself. It may not be your face, but it's your performance. You are doing the voice for the character, and all of your facial expressions are just being mapped. I mean, they're being mapped to the millimeter. So you're still performing it's your performance. There's a great example that I played a long, long time ago of sometimes the brain just goes right out, and people whose names I know so well just disappear. And this is one of those times. Hang on 1 second. Yes. Where is he? Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Andy Serkis has a... This is one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever seen. It's actually getting a little long in the tooth now. I want to say it's 2016, 17. But there's Andy Serkis is reading Shakespeare, and then they show you him reading Shakespeare with an alien, very alien face, really different geometry. And the alien reading Shakespeare is great. So then you got a split screen of Andy Serkis reading and then the alien reading. And then you look at this, you go, oh, fantastic. And then it took me 10 viewings of this to realize that the Andy Serkis was also CG. It wasn't really him. It was his face photoscanned. But yeah, so, and somebody just mentioned Mike Rowe. I would love to have Mike Rowe be in this in any way, shape, or form. I think he's the most American guy I know. He's got one of the best voices in the world. And Mike Rowe is somebody I would really, really like to use. Some people I got a chance to meet out here that I like very much. I like Bruce Boxleitner. I like very much. I like I know Kevin Sorbo rather well, and Adam Baldwin. All of these guys are famous actors, but they also have very distinctive voices, and that's where you can really get some good. And then the other nice thing too, in terms of, you just want to talk about saving money, you get a good character actor. A good character actor can give you 3 or 4 performances. If you look at The Simpsons or Futurama, my friend Maurice LaMarche, who was the voice of the Brain on Pinky and the Brain, although I haven't seen Maurice in 4 or 5 years now. But how many voices does Harry Shearer do on The Simpsons? It's 15 or something. Dan Castellaneta does 10. So you can get a good character actor, and that character actor will give you 3 or 4 major characters, and it's just great. Astronaut says, "What about Wes Chatham? Is he the guy who plays Amos on The Expanse?" And now we have the 8-second delay while we wait for the world to go out and ping and then come back again. Yes. Amos on The Expanse. I've got a lot of problems with The Expanse. But that character is one of the best written characters I have ever seen. He is without a doubt one of the most interesting characters in all of fiction. That Amos character. I mean, my God, is he an interesting guy. Absolutely incredible. Stuff comes out of his mouth just never ceases to amaze me. And the actor is terrific in it. I'm pretty sure he's from Georgia, I think. Anyway, so back to some questions because I want to get to as many as I can here. Another colony question. These are in the Stratosphere Lounge thing, so this all makes me very happy because, as I said, I was very concerned that a lot of people would think that it wasn't worth doing. One moment, please. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
We're fine, thanks.
Okay.
Have a good night. Bye-bye. So here's another one from George Freeland. Scenario. All right. You got your extrasolar colony up and running. Congratulations. The United Nations Interstellar Opportunity Commission is going to start sending shiploads of refugees and convicts your way. How do you deal with them humanely? What would you do given 20 years advance warning? These are the kind of questions I just love. And to be honest with you, I just before I read this a second ago, I said I got some real problems with The Expanse, and primary problem with the Expanse. I think it works well for them dramatically. But the whole thing about the Expanse is that the Expanse is pretty much continuously about the dispossessed, you know? I mean, really, the Expanse is pretty much nothing but social justice for the Belters. And here's another shipload of authentic third world refugees who are being shipped here and there and being exploited, and they don't get decent water or food, or, you know. I'm just so tired of it. The honest answer to this, George, is that the reason that I'm doing this thing in the first place is to get away from that, is to get away from the refugee crisis, and my not the refugee crisis, the huddled masses crisis. That's really actually what the story is about. Expanse has nothing but the huddled masses. How many times on the Expanse, I haven't seen all of the Expanse, but how many times on the Expanse have I seen a cargo hold full of dirty people who have been brutalized, and they're barely alive, and they're you know, and they're just let all the races sing, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, okay, can we please not? And the entire point of this thing I'm trying to do is to get away from the huddled masses, because that's basically the story of America, right? I mean, London in Dickens' time was so unbelievably filthy and filled with disease and horrors, and the prostitutes in Whitechapel during Jack the Ripper. So all of it is just horror. And it's like some people wanted to get away from there. And so they did. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the people that got away. I want to talk about the people who couldn't stand to be around huddled masses of people who are just nothing but perennial victims, not of their own choosing. I'm not blaming them for it. I'm just saying, I don't, it's like you've got an entire planet of refugees who have, from the looks of it, no education, no job experience, nothing. They're just people who are suffering. And I think that I just don't think space can afford that. There would come a time when civilization gets to be civilization. Look, frontiers cannot afford that. A frontier cannot afford shiploads of refugees and convicts. Australia will show you that the convicts will rapidly turn into settlers, and they'll turn into hardworking people, or either that or they'll become bush rangers. I love those terms. But you know, if you my point is, when you're out there on the frontier and you're in such a hazardous environment, you cannot, at least in the initial century or so, you can't afford to take anybody out there who's not going to pull their weight. You know, now somebody beat me to it. Mobile Moto beats me to it again. Phone sanitizers and hairstylists are on the C arc. Yes, exactly. From Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you put all the scientists and the philosophers on the A arc. You put all the merchants and traders and businessmen on the B arc, and then the C arc is where you put the phone sanitizers and the hairdressers and so on. And Earth is settled by the C arc people. But I really think you can make a compelling case that the reason that they're going to uncivilized places is because they want to get away from this. I just think that's what it's about. Now, that's going to raise a lot of hackles among progressives, which is the main reason I like it. So I think those are the old questions. Let's get some more. I want to get as many done as I can here after having missed last week and so on. Let's see. Here's one from Bart Hennon. Let's play devil's advocate. I'm already in. You had me at devil's advocate. Let's say single term becomes the norm. Democrat. I guess this is back to the idea of single term moving to America thing. Single single terms become the norm, Democratic Party and or the lobbyists behind it say to a potential Democratic representative, look, you're in for one term only, we'll get you elected, but then you vote the way we instruct, and at the end of the term we'll pay you $500,000. You vote just once against what we instruct, you get nothing. So basically, what he's basically saying is that you could still corrupt people because even if you didn't have the money going to the re-election campaign. Well, my first response to that, it's a great question, Bart, and these are the kind of questions that have to be asked. That's just simple bribery. And I think the reason we are in the trouble we're in is because the bribery that occurs in the system currently is legalized bribery. You are allowed to raise money for your re-election campaign. That is something that people can contribute to. It's a little bit reminds me of what I saw when I was at the University of Florida and the way that they tried to get top players to come to Gainesville, and they're not allowed to pay them. And so I don't know how much of this still goes on. I'm sure a lot of it, but there was years or decades when you would have guys saying things like, "Well, can I give him a car?" Or can I give him, can I let him stay in my apartment for a tenth of the rent, my apartment complex? All these ways of trying to get around the fact that you can't pay the guy. And not only were they illegal, a number of football teams got, just penalized out of 3 years, no bowl games for you, that kind of thing. So, there's that. And I'm not talking about the Democratic Party. I'm on the contrary. I'm talking about people that are going for the right reason. And the term limits is actually just kind of the selling point. It's almost like the brand, but it's not the reason. The reason is you would get citizens who are going because they feel like they have to, and vetting of candidates would be the single most important thing to this idea in terms of it working. That's it. You've got to vet your people. It's what we learned from the first election cycle in 2010 with the Tea Party. Some of those candidates were just terrible, just awful candidates, and you just can't afford that. So when I say you vet them, you're vetting them for character, and I certainly don't see a lot of that these days in politics as it exists. There's our friend Martin Archer. How do you manage to pay attention to politics, let alone think about it every day? Natasha, you want to take this one? How are you, by the way, baby? Good to see you. Be home soon. Now that politics is all bad and won't get better for years, if ever, with the kitty-sniffing, cheating criminal traitor and his team in power, I simply do not follow news anymore at all. Not that there are any good news sources left since, for one instant turned into surrender pundit. Note, I've always followed your work for your historical and cultural perspective and insights rather than the political stuff. Well, the question is, how can you deal with this? This would be a good time for me to nail myself to the metaphorical cross, because I don't get this kind of opportunity. I don't get this kind of setup. This perfect volleyball setup for me to spike the ball. There are times when it actually is really, really hard, and it's not just that you have to wade into it and read it and process it, but you have to filter it too. You have to take like the stuff that's the most toxic out and not pass that on, but at the same time you still got to do that, and you have to also try to make sense out of it. And it's hard. It really is. It's just sometimes it's just really, really, really awful to just have to go in there and look at all this stuff. But I'm just a fighter. I mean, I'm just a fighter. I think the thing that is the most motivating for me, and it's a strange thing really to say, but the thing that really genuinely propels me the most is I just have a inbound rage at injustice. That's what it is. It's injustice that bothers me. That's why I got so unbelievably upset about the election thing. I'm convinced that was stolen. Now, Some people disagree. That's fine. But you'd be disappointed over a loss, and but if it, I remember clearly thinking, I really hope that he won the election legitimately, because if he won it legitimately, I don't have to deal with the despair of watching the entire system be something else I have to stop believing in. So I really was hoping that would be the case, because then I could say, okay, a loss is a loss. If the entire system is as corrupted as it appears to be, that's just heartbreaking and practically immobilizing. But nevertheless, what's the alternative? You can either fight them or you can not. I really think that's it. And so I get outraged at the injustice of these kind of things, the injustice of this firing of this woman from Mandalorian, just the injustice of it after all of the things that this other guy wrote and tweeted. I think the thing that is the hardest to deal with on a daily basis, to be honest with you, Martin, is the hypocrisy, which is not. It's so much hypocrisy that the word hypocrisy is enormously, crazily inadequate to describe what is going on right now. But when I see things like this insurrection and then the mostly peaceful protests, I sometimes become quite convinced that they're really actually trying to make us insane. I really think there's a lot to that. I really think that on some level we're being trolled so hard that it is designed to make us genuinely, absolutely bat guano crazy. Because it's almost unbearable. It is unbearable. Sometimes gaslighting is what it is, and it's just, and when you see it, when you can see it, that's really the hard part. I mentioned in the moving back to America a couple days ago that when I saw this thing with the Vikings and Floki says we cannot kill these Muslims, I just threw a glass because I can see the message. That doesn't mean I'm particularly gifted in this regard. I mean, a lot of people were angry about it, but people say, well, what difference does it make? It's like, it makes a big difference, It's telling people, it's telling them that Christians cower in fear and Muslims are just nothing but courageous and heroic and never flinch and never blanch. And it's like, this is not, this idea is destructive and you have to fight it. So whenever I see these things, none of them would bother me nearly as much if I didn't see the damage that they were doing. This is one of the reasons why I'm a little better at this in the last week or so. But this women warriors thing just drives me absolutely bonkers. Especially in something like Vikings. Obviously, if a woman's got a gun, she points it at a big guy and she's a little woman. That's the whole reason why I'm in favor of guns. But when I see these 100-pound women beating up these Vikings that weigh 3 times what they do, I'm just constantly really upset about the message that sends, and so much wrong with that in so many different ways. And you just have to just calm down. You don't want to give yourself a heart attack. And I realize, no, what it does is I think that my adrenaline levels are so high, is that the blood moves so rapidly through my system that there's no time for aneurysms or strokes or anything like that. It just the flow velocity is too high. I don't know what else to say about it, honestly, but it's just crazy. This second impeachment thing is just crazy. All right, moving on. Wow. Another question about colonies, which I'm not going to take because I've answered a bunch of them and also dealt with that with Bart. But thank you, Bart. Let me go back and get as many more of these as I can. A little beat as usual. Let's see. And then some of these are individual questions. It's from Henry Lumley again, with his awesome SpaceX Dragon avatar. And basically it's a plug for Not the Bee, which is a conservative news source actually that deals with stories that must be Babylon Bee parody. And I can't believe how good Babylon Bee is. Have you noticed that The Onion has just disappeared? It's just gone from the pop culture. I haven't seen or heard a reference to an Onion article in 3 or 4 years. Not ever, well, maybe not quite that long, but ever since the Babylon Bee appeared, it's like, blew them out of the water. So it's a just great example of the fact that you can actually do conservative comedy, but you need professional comedy writers. And Frank Fleming, I had a chance to interview him back in the old blog days when he was at IMHO. Is it IMHO? IMAO? Whatever. He's a funny guy. I met him actually for lunch. Went to Sonny's Barbecue in Orlando or something many years ago now. Anyway, here's a question on space elevators. I love my. Why did Star Trek never use space elevators? Okay, on one episode from Voyager, but not really counting that. What do you think about the ideas of space elevators? They're popular in sci-fi. The Halo games and novels use them extensively. Also, the Red Mars series, along with others. Space elevators is one of those things that is not touched nearly enough. I'll tell you, and I don't mean to jump immediately off the topic, because space elevators are a real interesting idea. But the one thing that I am going to be including, and I haven't shown any rendering of these, is robots, and not really droids. I mean robots. I'm going to have scout robots. I'm going to send the robot out to do, all this stuff. I'm going to have robots doing assembly. I have yet to see any science fiction series really handle robots the way that I predict that robots are going to appear. Excuse me. And Star Wars droids don't count. I mean, what have you ever seen a droid do anything? It's actually kind of an interesting question, isn't it? In Star Wars, have you ever actually seen a droid actually do anything? Nothing comes to mind. They're there for color, but actual robots, I think, are tremendously cool. And things like virtual reality. In other words, if I'm going to explore a planet's surface, I think probably the first thing I'll do is I'll put a robot down there, and then I will put on some goggles, and I will explore the dangerous places first, and then when it's safe for humans to go down, then we'll do that. By the way, it's unrelated, except that it's cool. We've got the Perseverance lander coming up. The Chinese have achieved orbit around Mars, and so have the Arabs. The UAE put a probe in orbit around Mars. That's impressive. That's impressive. But Perseverance gets there, I want to say, on the 19th of February, so a little over a week from now. One thing I did not know, first of all, I thought Curiosity had been on Mars for, 3-4 years. It's been on Mars for 9. That's almost unbelievable for me. But Perseverance is going to go down, and it's a very complicated landing system, very complicated. They come in on a heat shield, they slow down with aerodynamic braking, and then the heat shield pops off, and then the drogue chute happens, and the chute slows it down some more, and then it gets to a certain altitude, and then rockets fire, but they can't have the rockets take it all the way down because it'll damage the rover, so the rockets are firing, and then the rover comes down on cables, and once it contacts the ground, then the rover goes. Then the rockets go fly somewhere else, and then they crash. And apparently, there's a helicopter as well. But the thing that I just found out a couple days ago is that there's something like 19 cameras on this probe. They said it's the most cameras ever put on a space probe. including cameras that are going to be recording the descent from the sky crane, from the part that actually drops the lander. So we should be getting high-resolution images looking down at the Martian surface and then watching the rover go down, and then that will be mind-boggling. And of you looking up at this thing, it'd be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. So that'll be cool. And robots and probes are grossly underused. Space elevators are interesting. They're I know they used them in one of the, was it Call of Duty Infinite Warfare? Was a space elevator? I have to tell you, honestly, here comes the sneeze again. Excuse me. Ooh. Somebody told me that that's how whales breathe. Like they whales circulate something like 96% of their total lung volume or something. Anyway, here's what my concern about a space elevator is, to be honest with you, Henry, and it's terrorism. It's just that simple, and terrorism is something else that no one's talking about in the future. You can't have terrorists on the frontier. There's number one. There's not a whole. In order to terrorize people, you have to strike concentrations of civilians. Pretty much the definition of terrorism. It's not going to terrorize anybody if you go out and kill some guy out on a farm someplace. It terrorizes the family, but in terms of what the purpose of terrorism is, you can't have it. But honestly, if you had a space elevator, how do you defend that? I mean, I don't know. That's something I never thought about. Roy Hamill makes a great point. Terrorism is the main reason why self-driving cars is beyond scary. That thought never occurred to me. Sorry, tired. I can't imagine a more lucrative target for terrorists than a space elevator, and it seems to me that it wouldn't. A space elevator has to be pretty robust, but essentially it's just a long, thin structure that's anchored to the ground, and any explosion anywhere would probably do it. And so. I'm not worried about the great visual thing would be that somebody sabotaged one of the cars and then you just basically fall to earth in an elevator. But actually, the real damage is damage to the structure, to the actual core, and that's my main concern about something like that, is it's just too easy to hit. But I will definitely give it some thought. It's underutilized, and I am all about doing things that have not been seen, or at least not seen overwhelmingly done. Regarding your Academy idea, I forwarded your Academy video to Stefan Molyneux. Would you reach out to him? Seems like it'd be in his wheelhouse, given his promotion of peaceful parenting and how frequently he talks about fatherlessness and single motherhood. I've worked with Stefan before. I've done several shows with him. I enjoyed it very much. He was utterly removed from YouTube. It was just plain shut down. And that has been painful for him. I'm not worried about it in terms of that aspect of it. It's just that this is from Marusha Dark, by the way. I don't even really know what to say about that one. Let me just think about that for a second. I would like to talk to him about him very much. I guess what I'm really trying to say is I'm not really set up for interviews. We have a lot of technical issues with we'll do better this time with the Zoe thing, but that is an interesting idea, Marusha. Let me give that some thought, because to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't thought about Stefan for quite a while. But let me think about that, because it would be a real good subject to talk to him about, and I think we could get a lot out of that. So thanks for that. Here comes another one. Looks like we got 4 more after this. To mask or not to mask, how far does public safety go? What role does your employer play? Resist now or grin and bear it? So here's a question from Justin Whitsett. The company I work for is pushing the mask mandate more aggressively lately because a Karen complained to OSHA that one of my coworkers was not wearing one. Thank you, Karen. The only reason my bosses are pushing it because the government told them to. So, for the sake of public safety, the government makes my employer enforce their mask mandate. What about when, for public safety, they force my employer to enforce a firearm registration act? Now you're on to it, buddy. Fill out this paper. How many guns do you have? What caliber? Where are they? Fill it out. If you refuse, you're fired. Or if I say certain groups of people are told to sew a yellow star on their jacket. I see no difference between these examples and the mask mandate. All can be justified for public safety. Should we resist mask mandates or bear it? That's the question. It really is. That's just a great, great, great question. One of the things that this China article that I mentioned at the beginning of the show talks about is the idea of a lockdown. Has never really been done. Quarantine is a grand idea, but they're not talking about quarantine. Is when you take the sick people and build a wall around them. Lockdowns are when you build a wall around the entire population and restrict people from moving. And the point of this article was China loves it, and American or post-American elites love it because it's a way to demoralize the population. And it's very effective at that. Not just putting businesses out of business, but the fact of the matter is, just the fact that they can tell you to do something and then you have to do it is demoralizing for us and encouraging for them. And I've often felt that one of the reasons they like the masks the most, and one of the reasons we did this on my right angle. There's a study done that says that 3/4 of Americans will continue to wear masks after the pandemic is under control. I find that number very hard to believe, but the fact that any of them are willing to, I don't know if that I think that I don't think that one is released yet, but if not, it'll open up tomorrow or the next day. I go to the pharmacy and I see these little stickers on the floor. Here's your 6-foot separation distance. And I say to myself, I cannot wait for the day to come when we can tear those damn things up. Everybody's vaccinated, off we go. My genuine concern is that day will never come. I am genuinely concerned that these things are going to be here forever. And I am not going to, how are we ever going to see these plastic? I don't know if it's the same for you guys out there. I'm sure it's pretty similar. In California, you go to a 7-Eleven or go to a grocery store or whatever. Now there's these plexiglass things that hang down between you and the salesperson. So, is that ever going to go away? I bet it doesn't. And it's all about, it's all about keeping people from connecting to each other. They want us to wear the mask forever because the masks dehumanize people, and you can't strike up a conversation or get to be friends with people if you can't see their faces, or certainly harder anyway. And so everybody stays online. They can control the information online. I am very, 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 very concerned about this whole thing. And I have I don't know. I just have this bad feeling that when these Trump vaccines are finally enough of them out there so that this thing is essentially under control, then I'm really beginning to wonder if something else won't appear, and we'll go through this whole thing again. And I don't know. I told my wife that the American people would never put up with this for more than 2 weeks, and turns out I'm off by a factor of nearly 45 weeks now. So that's not good. But I don't want to continue living like this, and I'm not going to. If it turned out that it looked like California was going to have these masks in place forever, that would be a good reason to leave. is really, really, really concerning me. Everybody at my dentist's office said, I went up there, had a chipped tooth, and they said, yeah, we all got vaccinated. We're mental, that place too. We're a medical facility, so everybody got their shots, and I just thought that's really cool. That's fantastic. And in California, you're required to wear them entering a public place, so I don't wear one on the street. I have to tell you, and this is just me, but when I see people in a car by themselves with a mask on, I just want to either laugh or cry. I don't know which one to do, but I when I see people in a car with the mask on by themselves, I don't know what to say. I don't know whether it's ignorance. I suspect it's probably in most cases virtue signaling. But good Lord. And so many of these deaths are deaths that occurred with COVID-19, not because of. I don't want to get into all this again. I've been talking about this for a year now. But anyway, this study that I did on my Right Angle show said that flu has essentially disappeared. Instead of 40,000 cases, we have a couple hundred. Isn't that great? All we have to do is wear masks. And I didn't get to say something on that show that I get to say now, and I wish I'd said it on that show. When you get right down to it, if everybody lived, there was a show called the Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I think it was John Travolta, a kid who was born with immunodeficiency, had no immune system, and he was in a sterilized plastic bubble. This happened in the 70s, I want to say. And so we can all go around in our own little sterile plastic bubbles, and it is absolutely true that will significantly reduce your possibility of getting infection. And flu will go down to practically zero. Ditto for colds, pretty much. We all wear our own little plastic bubbles and don't ever touch or contact anybody else. Don't ever come face to face with anybody else. As long as we're all in our plastic bubbles, then we will all be that much safer. And that's the end argument of the face mask argument, right? Well, this is for the public health. At what point does it not become not worth it? Are you saying that you would rather have people die? Yeah, actually, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's pretty much what I'm saying. I'm not making decisions for anybody else. My entire philosophy is I don't get to tell other people what to do. But if somebody said to me, I mean, this is a no-brainer, but apparently there are significant numbers of people who have a different opinion of this. When the COVID-19 thing is under control because of the Trump vaccines, then will you continue to wear a mask? No, of course I won't. Well, if you did, you wouldn't get the flu. Well, if I lived in a plastic bubble, I wouldn't get the flu, wouldn't get anything. But who wants to live in a plastic bubble? And this is the part that bothers me. A lot of people do. A lot of people are so terrified and they're so cowardly and they've just been so brainwashed that they would rather live in a plastic bubble for the rest of their lives. They really, really would. It's inconceivable to me. And I don't know. You can only get so far away from reality, and from reality I mean death as a culture before things start getting completely bat guano crazy. And we're at that point and past it. If we were losing, if families had 8 or 9 kids each, and you lost 3 or 4 of them before they reached adulthood, then issues like this would not be so, So anyway, I don't know. I am not. Yeah, Dave Big Booty's got it. You're alive in your plastic bubble, but you're not living. That's really the point. It's not living. It's not. I don't fear it. I don't fear dying, and I especially don't fear dying from this particular disease. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. It could happen. I could get it, and I could have a bad reaction to it, and that could be the end of it. But I'm not gonna. You cannot live like that. It's not even a question of liberty or freedom or anything like that. It's just you cannot live your life doing everything possible to make sure that you don't die. That is not a way to live. You just simply don't. You don't live. You get nothing out of it. When it's over, you lose. And I really believe that this is the most important decision that people have to make in life, and that is, how much risk are you going to take in order to get what kind of reward? I flew single-engine airplanes for quite a long time, for 1,000 hours, and that's more dangerous than staying home watching TV. But it was worth every second of it. And training helps, and preparation helps, all of that stuff. I did a segment on the guys doing the wingsuits with the jetpacks, and one of those guys got killed. But that is as close to flying that a human being can get. The guy died young. He was probably in his 20s, mid-20s. And I said, well, life isn't about length, it's about volume. And I wouldn't take those kind of risks. I would have before I got married, or I would have before, I would have done it, would have thought about it anyway before I got married. I don't have that kind of, I can't be that careless anymore. And that's a nice feeling, by the way. But I deeply admired them. Deeply admired them. I do not admire people who take risks for the sake of adrenaline and are basically walking the line between life and death just because they get a charge out of it. That I don't admire. But people who do very risky things and understand the risk and are this is what it comes down to. They're making a conscious decision to make the trade, right? Yes, this is exceedingly dangerous. Exceedingly dangerous, but it's also exceedingly cool and exciting. And I've weighed the options, and I'm willing to go. It's basically the same thing for a space mission. Would I go to Mars? If I was by myself on a Mars, if I was living by myself, would I go to Mars? Wouldn't think twice about it. I would be on board, absolutely. But I'm not by myself anymore, and that changes your calculation, and that's okay too. And if you're And this is kind of what I'm getting at. That's actually good, It's good. This is how I think life should be lived. I'm not saying life should be lived without taking any risks. I'm not saying life should be lived taking crazy risks. I'm saying that life should be lived with an understanding of what the risks and the rewards are. And in a happy world, each individual person gets to make their own decision. No one's deciding for you. I think that's how we should handle the pandemics. I think in the future, I really do think we should have genuine little plastic bubbles around our head. And when this thing comes up again next time, then I think what we should say is, if you want to go out into the world with your little helmet on and it's filtering your viruses out, knock yourselves out. Who am I to tell you that if you don't want to take that risk, that's fine. But at the same time, I will wear a mask or not mask. I'll stay in or not stay in based on how risky I perceive this particular pandemic or any particular disease to be. If we were talking about aerosolized Ebola or yellow fever or something like that, I would not have the same attitude towards this that I do have. But my attitude towards this is based upon the reality of the situation on the ground. And of all the crimes that the news media has committed, including the mortal sin of telling people that things like hydroxychloroquine don't work because they don't like Donald Trump, the major crime about the COVID-19 thing is that the media has not given people perspective, scared the living daylights out of people. And when I see young people, especially like in their 20s, saying, "How come you're not wearing a mask? I don't want to die. What you're trying to kill me?" It's like, there are times when you just literally are speechless. And it is about, I don't know how much of it is about control, political control, but I know that a significant portion of it, probably most of it, is about politics, not about science or any other medical reason. Huge majority of it is political, and that needs to be fought to the death. And this is how people should live. And this is why this business about me not taking the risks I used to take is not, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. The actual genuine truth, I just come out and say it, is I have a lot more to live for now than I did before. And that's grand. Is it possible to dangle something in front of me that would cause me to have a discussion? It is, yes. I can imagine a few temptations that would be very difficult for me to resist. If Elon Musk offered me a ride into orbit, I would have a long conversation about that one with my wife, because that would be an extremely desirable deal. And then the question would be, okay, I know what the reward is. How risky is it really? And when it come right down to it, if you really do love somebody, you don't want them to live in a cage, right? You don't want them to. I don't want the people I love, or even the animals that I love, to live in a box just so that they'll live longer. I'd like them to live as long as possible and have as much fun as possible. I'd like as much volume as possible. But anyway, that's my take on it. Looks like we got 3 more, and I'm going to kind of push through these because I'm getting a little beat and I'm a little bit hungry too. Jack Ramble asked a question, and this one is one that actually vexes me. How much involvement is Bill going to have with the forum? The answer right now, as we speak on February 11th, the answer right now is he is not having nearly as much time in the forum as he wants to have. And I love speaking about him in the third person. It makes him feel grand and important when he does that. Jack, the truth of the matter is I want to spend more time in the forums. And the fact of it is that there is so much other stuff to do in terms of getting stuff out the door that it kind of sits at the bottom of the priority, and it shouldn't. It needs to be higher. So it's something I am continually trying to work into my schedule, and I'm actually thinking that maybe the way to do this is to tomorrow we're going to do try and get this firewall out the door. But I'm actually beginning to think that maybe what I might want to do is just basically say on Fridays there is no Moving Back to America show. We do 4 of those a week. It's a good number. And on Fridays, that allows me to do things like come in and spend an hour or 2 in the forums and move other stuff along, because it's just not getting done at the end of the day, because by the time I get out of here, I'm usually really pretty tired. And by the way, and this does bear mentioning, and it does bear keeping in mind for what it's worth. I read the comments far more often than I make them. It may look like just never there. That's not true. I read them quite a lot, but I don't comment as much as I should, and I think that gives people the impression that I'm just not there. I'm not there as much as I want to be. I'm not there as much as I should be. But I'm probably there more often than it appears. And this is an issue that is genuinely worrisome to me, because it is a 100% legitimate issue, and one that I am very conflicted about, and not conflicted about, one that I'm bothered about, that I just seem to be feeling like I really need to spend some time in the forums and talk with people and get some feedback. But on the other hand, I could really use some sleep. So that's the honest answer, and I'm going to try to do better than that. I've been getting 5 hours of sleep a night, generally 5 or 6, and occasionally can get a nap in around 5 in the afternoon. But I just need to get more sleep, and that would help quite a lot. 2 to go. My gosh, Harry Lumley is just kicking butt here. Steve Young, Bill, for our new members, can you talk about climate hysteria? I was hoping we'd put the subject to rest, but no. Oh, look who it is. Yes, I can. And I just don't think I'm going to do it right now, to be honest with you, Steve, because number one, it's a lot to do. I have the material for for this China firewall tomorrow, and I did some research on something that I was going to do for a moving back to America, but the research got to be so intensive that I thought it deserves, a complete script, and that was on green energy. I think I talked about that very recently. Maybe I talked about it this morning. I took a look at California's current energy usage, what it's allowed in the future, what's been approved, what hasn't been, what's coming offline, and so on. And basically, it's an indictment of this. Look, green energy is a lie. It is, as it exists now, you can get to a zero emission economy for the United States if that's your goal, but you can't get to a zero emission economy using renewables. Just can't. It's not like, hey, we have to try harder or we need new technology. It's very simple. If you're telling me that you can get to the trillions of megawatts that this country consumes using solar and wind, the answer is no. It's no. The sun doesn't shine at nighttime, and the wind doesn't blow all the time either. And that means that those energy sources have to have backups that come online, and they're less efficient than what you would get, and not only less efficient, they're dirtier than what you would get if you just went with that in the first place. This is ridiculous. And one of the things, I think I might have mentioned this morning, because I came in, I just talked for half an hour or so just because people were there for the live recording and I didn't record a show today. But when you talk about energy storage in California, I mean, I almost cried. If you take the 405 freeway north, right as it merges with the 5 out of Los Angeles, you go over the top of the hill in towards Visalia, heading towards Magic Mountain. And as you drive over that hill, up on the right-hand side, you will see a series of like concrete steps, like tiles, hundreds of them. And sometimes you see water coming down there, and other times not. I thought this was just how the how the California aqueduct got into LA. But I don't think that's what it is. I found out from my research on California's energy situation that this is how they store energy in California. This is unbelievable to me. When you've got an actual fuel and an energy source, like natural gas, for example, you move it, you burn it, you create energy, and you don't pay for it. You just create energy. Light it on fire, and it does the work. But what they're talking about with like solar, if we accept the fact that it gets dark at nighttime, okay, I think that's a reasonable fact. Then we have to, in order for this to work, completely green energy, you have to make enough electricity during the daytime using solar panels and wind turbines to power the economy during the day. And you also have to make enough electricity to be able to power the admittedly lower loads at nighttime to get you through the night to the next day. And presumably you need to have some of that spare because there are days when the sun doesn't shine. And if you live any place other than California, there are months when the sun doesn't shine. So what do they do to store this energy? Well, in California, on that thing I see that I mentioned before, these steps coming down this pretty steep hill. In California, they store energy like this. At nighttime, when energy use is lower and cheaper, they pump water uphill. Which requires a significant amount of energy. Water's heavy. You got to pump it up the hill. And so what they're calling energy storage is, we pump it up the hill at 30 cents a kilowatt hour or whatever, and then we let it flow down in the daytime and generate electricity at 60 cents per kilowatt hour. They're lifting water uphill. They're using energy to lift water uphill so that they can have a continuous flow of energy. And to me, that seems barking mad. Just seems absolutely, here for the third time tonight, bat guano crazy. Just insane. And there's also talk about going to Yucca Flats and the salt mines out there, where they have these chambers underground, and you can build a whole lot more of them. They're airtight. And there's talk about storing solar power by basically compressing underground chambers and using them as a compressed air source, like a giant air tank. So during the daytime, you use energy to compress air into these huge underground caverns, and at nighttime, you let the air out. It drives a turbine. But the idea of spending enormous amounts of energy in order to store the energy seems insane to me. It seems insane. And no one seems to get it. They're like, oh, I store energy that way. But how much how much energy are you burning in order to store it? It's nuts. It's nuts. If you really, really genuinely believed that the emissions are killing the planet, if you really genuinely believed that that was it, then everybody'd be in favor of nuclear. But they don't. Because it's always going to be somebody else who's going to cut their energy use. It's not going to be the elites. They're going to have their jets so that they can fly to the global warming conferences. Anyway, all of this to say that I'm hoping to get all that included in an upcoming firewall, and hopefully I can deal with it for you then. Last one. Hooray! Hurrah! Steve Young again. If states mandate that mail-in unsolicited ballots are legal, should conservative voters go low and create multiple illegal ballots to offset the leftist illegal ballots? I've not seen the courts prosecuting cases of voter fraud. In fact, our government claims our elections are now the most fair and transparent ever. Ever. Here's where we get to a deep issue, Steve. It's a great question. And I think that this is all factored in when I look at what the left is doing. The answer to that, in my mind, would be yes, but. And what it comes down to is, I think that this entire thing, that this entire American society that we live in now, is predicated upon very deep psychological understanding of how people behave. I'm utterly convinced that's the reason why people like big tech is collecting every mouse click. Yes, it's nice to sell us sweaters and all the rest of this stuff, but I think what they really want is they want to know what large numbers of people are going to do. And while on paper this makes sense, if the left is going to create 50 ballots and no one's going to be prosecuted for it, and we can be relatively convinced that no one would be prosecuted, then why not do it ourselves? Well, first of all, we know that they aren't prosecuted for it, but if you ever do find a conservative who does make 50 ballots and mail it in, then that will be yet another insurrection against the republic, and people will claim that their lives were threatened. So there's that double standard to it. But I think the deeper issue is that they know that they would take the deal. I think the left knows, yeah, well, sure, we'll do the let's have an unaccountable electoral system. I think the math that the left does basically is this, and they're not good at math, but they're good at this. They basically say this: let's have an electoral system where it's easy to cheat. We can cheat, and conservatives can cheat, but we know that conservatives don't like to cheat, don't believe in cheating, and won't cheat. That's why they're conservatives. So what's the harm? If 1 out of 100 of them does it, we still win. I really think that's what it comes down to. This is how they are pulling this off. They understand how law-abiding people work, and they create a system whereby cheating is enabled through a lack of enforcement of the law, and they've done the calculation correctly, as it turns out, and said to themselves, okay, so if everybody can cheat, we can cheat, and we will, enthusiastically. They can cheat too, yes, but they won't, generally, so it's a good deal. The inverse of that is, the reason conservatives want airtight voting regulations so that every vote is legal. The reason we want that is because we know that we're going to vote legally, and we know that they won't. We want to constrain them from cheating. That's why we want strict voter laws. They want to enable cheating, which is why they want no voter laws. And that tells you how sides work. They have no problem with cheating because they've convinced themselves that the reason they have to have power at any cost is in order to do all of this good that they do. And just check out Detroit or St. Louis or Chicago, see how much, or South Central LA, you can see how much good that they actually do. But I think that's really it. It suits them to have a world with no rules because they're cheaters. And it suits us to have a rule with stringent rules, a world with strict rules, because we're not. And America was always a place that had strict rules, that laws were fair, limited number of them, and fair, and generally speaking, evenly applied. And when I say limited number of them, one of the ways of cheating is you make laws so complex that they can no longer be followed. And not only can they no longer be followed, when there are so many laws that at any given time you are in, everybody watching this show live and on YouTube, every single one of you is in violation of some law right now. I guarantee you there is, at the very least, a misdemeanor statutes that you're violating right this second, and probably some felonies too. I guarantee it. And when you get to that point, then law doesn't mean anything anymore. Just like money doesn't mean anything anymore. This money will never be repaid. Everybody knows it now. It's never going to be repaid, ever. They print trillions and trillions and trillions. Is it 3 felonies a day? Is that what people are saying is about average? So, this is the kind of thing that keeps me... this is the kind of thing that needs to be addressed while other people with much larger audiences do things like dissect the politics of the day. It's things like this that I like to concentrate on, and that is what's really going on underground. What's going on underground? When you look at a city, you stand up on the Mulholland Drive or something, you look down at Los Angeles and you can see electric lights in the windows, and you can see the streets and street lights, and you can see structures and buildings. You know that there are elevators in there, and that's Los Angeles, and that's what you see. What you don't see is you don't see the underground power lines, and you don't see the underground sewers either. And there is no city without those, but they're there. And that's where the action is. That's where the manipulation and the chicanery is. It's underground. It's not immediately visible. And this example that I just gave, I think, is a good one. It suits them to have, when you say, well, should we cheat too? Tactically speaking, yes, I think you should cheat too. Yes, tactically I'm saying yes. If they're cheating, we should cheat too. But I know it's not going to happen. And I'm proud it's not going to happen. And at the same time, I realize that this is how we get defeated. And these are the kind of questions that need to be asked. And we have asked and answered them all. And now I can retire home. I can return to the hall of my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall no longer be ashamed. I can also go home and see my beautiful wife and get a bite to eat. So that sounds like a plan too. Anyway, thank you all of you, and thanks for the patience. A little late start today. It was had an appointment, ran a little long, but I'm back. I'm here. And for those of you on YouTube, disregard what I just said. We got the show off exactly on time, as we always do. The show starts, as you probably know, if you've only watched on YouTube, the show starts precisely at 6 p.m. And you can set your clock by it, and it's just the way it looks. Right at 6 o'clock sharp, the show starts, and we have another perfect launch without any technical issues. And here we are, by myself, doing that. And Bill is so impressed with Bill's ability to do that Bill often knows no bounds in admiration of Bill's own fascinating facets that fall like a flood from the faucet of facets. Okay, I think that's enough of this foolishness. That'll do it. Thank you for joining us. This show is made possible, as always, by the members at BillWhittle.com. The new ones, welcome. Glad to have you, and very grateful and incredibly encouraged by that membership drive. Honestly, it means the world to me. And all the one-time donations as well. I wish I could answer every one of them. But thank you for all of that. And as always, for our longtime members who tend to be here forever, all I have to say is, in the immortal words of John Pershing, is Hail Vectron, and we will see you here next week by Vectron's Golden Claw.